IAEI News Live. My name is Thomas Dimitrovich. Today is Tuesday, February 1st. January is behind us. We're on to another month. This is the second month. We're in 2022. And today's discussion on IAEI News Live is on NFPA 70E. Safe work practices is what it's all about. Right here, we're going to be talking about the next edition. We're in mid-cycle. We're going to talk about the next edition, and it all starts now. All right. I hope you're ready. Lou, thanks for joining us. We're talking NFPA 70E, and we're in the current version that's out there right now is the 2021 edition. And what we're working on now, or what the committee is working on now, is the 2024 edition of NFPA 70E. We're mid-cycle. So what do we mean by mid-cycle? You got to think about the NFPA process. Every 3 years, we update an NFPA document. The National Electrical Code has just finished its second draft meetings. We will have the annual meeting next year to talk about the 2023 National Electrical Code. NFPA 70E is a year delayed, I guess you'd call it. So they start the 70E process the year after we start the National Electrical Code process. So 70E, you'll notice it says 2021, and right now for the National Electrical Code, we have the 2020 National Electrical Code. So we're going to have the 2023 National Electrical Code, and we'll have the 2024 70E document. Larry Griffith, glad to see you here. I really appreciate you joining in. And hello to everybody. All right, so 70E. I've got now the Mickey Donahue. Excellent, glad to see you. Okay, so we did a little notice earlier, and what I'm going to do is I am going to give everybody a link. I'm going to put it over here, Control V. These are the first revision statements. So it's a download, the document. I just put that in the chat. It should be at least in YouTube and Facebook. You should see a link to a document that is available on the NFPA website for 70E, and it includes it's the first, what's the title of this document? First draft, first revision statements. So it's a public document out there for your review. You can take a look at that, download it, read through it. It is 224 pages of pure fun. So I know you're going to this is going to be better than the best novel you've ever read. You're going to pick this document up, you're going to start reading it, and you're not going to be able to put it down. Good afternoon, Felix Sandoval and all my technical social distancing network individuals, TSDN, alive and well across many platforms. So thanks, Felix, for dialing in and bringing Colombia to the table, South America. So, okay, and hopefully we'll have a few other countries represented because we're talking safe work practices. And IAEI is, again, an electrical safety leader. What the IAEI brings to the table is dialogue, discussions like we're going to have today, to increase electrical safety. We talk a lot about the National Electrical Code. Last week, we talked about 70B. Today, 70E is on the table. So, and I just gave you a good reference. Let's do it, Phil Hydia. All right, so what you're going to see in the document that I sent, that I just provided a link to. Mr. Michael Hofkin, greetings. Glad that you are able to be here as well. What you're going to see and it looks like this document has all of the first revisions. I don't see anything in here that was resolved. Everything looks like it has a first revision. So if you did a public input to 70E, you can always go up and check the status of your public inputs by going to the NFPA 70E website. Now, let's do this. Let me show you what we're talking about. All right, so if you open up your browser, I'm up here. If you open up your browser and you go to www.nfpa.org/70E, and I'm going to Control-C copy that. If you go to /70E, yeah, right, Dan. I just put the link over. If you are on YouTube or Facebook, you'll be able to get that. And hopefully every one of you are watching this on YouTube. Remember, hit the subscribe button. It's free. Don't forget to click the bell. Subscribe. Okay, don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Get your friends, get your family members. The YouTube channel for IAEI is growing, but I want it to grow exponentially to the 4th degree. Okay, so I need you guys and gals out there to subscribe. So please do so. 1225. Okay, Phil, Heidi, this is, remember, go out here to 70E, and what you'll do is nfpa.org/70E, you'll go to next edition, and if you scroll down, there's the electrical safety in a workplace. You see where there's a first draft ballot, public input report, public first revision report. That's the document that I just gave you the link to. It's the first revision report. You click this and view it. You can view it online or you can download it. Either way, you can get a copy of that document. And my suggestion is to get a copy of that document, take a look at it, and grab your book of 70E. So, having said all that, I am going to open up. Geez, oh man, I got too many windows open. I got my Google Doc. Where is my, there it is. Terra, I want to look at Terra. All right, so let's take, now, one overview, code-wide changes. Let's just talk about code-wide. Remember, the National Electrical Code 2023 cycle, if you've been following some of the NEC changes, the discussions that we've had on this channel, you will know that the 2023 code cycle there's eyes looking at that document that are also looking on the style manual. So 70E is no different. If you look at the 70E changes, or when you take a look at some of the first revisions that have passed, you'll notice that Article 90, for example, 90.1, there is a new scope document or a scope section. So the complete Article 90 was reorganized to comply with the 2020 NEC style manual. Now I know it says the NEC style manual. 70E follows the National Electrical Code style manual. And that style manual requires that the first section on each of the articles provides a scope. So Article 90 has to have a 90.1 scope. And if I look at the 2021 edition, I know you are opening your version. Either you're going to open your document physically, or if your computer, it's really an easy access. If you go to NFPA link, go out there to that NFPA website, and my suggestion, I'm telling you, you can get NFPA link and get all of these documents online. You can actually put those right on your cell phone. Okay. And so you can access it remotely without having internet access. It'll download the information that you need onto your phone. You can download it onto your computer as well, so your laptop, so you don't need internet connection when you're viewing it. I know I was hesitant in the past. I was a critic. I'm not afraid to admit it, but I have bought into this because I got my membership out there on NFPA link, and I'm enjoying the ability to view my documents online and on my phone. And I can put notes in there too. I can flag different sections. So if you take a look at Article 90 in your edition, you'll see 90.1 was titled Purpose. Now, the NEC Style Manual tells us 90.1 should be Scope, not Purpose. 90.2 was Scope. And in the 2021 edition of 70E. So they rearranged some things. What you're going to notice is that they added a 90.1 scope. They changed the title of 90.2, which used to be scope, is now purpose. They really left the contents of 90.2 in there. I've seen the light, Robert. I have seen the light. Amen, brother. So 90.2, and instead of saying 90.2a said covered, they added workplaces covered. And if I look at the first revision, if I look at their substantiation, the committee statement, they basically tell you that they retitled the section, and the first level subdivisions A and B have been retitled to clarify which workplaces are covered and not covered. So what they're talking about with regard to what's being covered and not covered are the workplaces. So I guess that was important to them. So in any case, and that was accepted unanimously. So you're going to see throughout this book, throughout the 2024 edition, you're going to see many changes that were made to align with the NEC Style Manual. Now, another thing that I will do for you, because you are in on this IAEI News Live, I'm going to do you a solid here. I'm going to get you the NEC Style Manual. I'm going to tell you how to find it. But first, I've got to figure out how to find it. I believe you go to Technical Committee, and I'm just going to put the link in there for you. You go to Guidelines and Classifications. You got to go to the you have to go to the Standards Council Technical Meeting, Regulations and Policies. Regulations covering NFPA standards, guide for conducting blah, blah, blahs. That's not the right one. So where is it? I believe, almost positive it's on the next edition. You go to Motions, you go to First Draft Committee, Second Draft, First Draft. Oh man, I shouldn't have to hunt for this. Second Draft, First Draft Committee Information, First Draft Meeting Notices. I'm going to go to More, Pre-First Draft, Free Ballots. There's Code Panel 1, Code Panel 2, 5, 7. I'm going to go to Current and Prior Conditions, because I know it's not this hard. Current and Prior Additions. I am on Current and Prior Additions, Proposed Amendments. Anyway, you know what? Here it is, Document, Show. There it is. Okay, so it's under Current and Prior Additions. Okay, so I'm under Current and Prior Additions. So I click this on 70, and you go to Additional Information. I knew it was easy. And then it says right here, NEC Style Manual. I'm going to hit Open in New Tab. There it is. And then this is what we do. We do Control-C. Joe Bellantoni, thanks for joining us. Control-V. I'm teaching you how to fish. That's exactly right. I'm teaching you how to fish. And I was just fishing and hunting right there, man. I'll tell you what. I was out in left field. So that's how you do it. You go to the National Electrical Code. Don't go to this one. Now I'll tell you. here's another good one. So if you, let's start back where I was. If you got the NEC style manual, you have the supplemental operating procedures for the NEC, the NFPA reports, all this other good stuff. If you go to the next edition, technical committee, and you'll see committee scope and responsibilities. Go to committee scope and responsibilities. Is another important document that you need to be aware. I'm sorry, not scope and responsibilities, guidelines and classifications. Go to committee overview. On the technical committee, 70, here, let's go to 70E. I'm on 70E, technical committee. They have the same thing, guidelines and classifications. They'll take you to the same spot. So you come here to guidelines and classifications. This tells you the makeup of the committee. They follow the same rules. They have manufacturers, users, installers, and maintainers. You can only have so many of each represented. Then you go to regulations and policies, and what you'll find is regulations governing the development of NFPA standards. You click on that, and that brings up this document. Now, regulations governing the development of NFPA standards, great resource and another great read for you. 70E follows this as well. So I gave you, you know what I'll do here? I will Control C. I'm going to put that in the chat as well. Control V and send it to every one of you. All right. So we're back to the document, Article 90. So you're going to see many changes in 70E that are addressing the NFPA style manual, the NEC style manual, which I just put in the link, which you can download and read. It's the latest edition of that document. There's requirements on the definitions. All definitions have to be in Article 100. There's requirements on, like what we're seeing here, 90.1 has scope. You have to have the scope be the first section in each article. All right, so workplaces. Oh, and also they changed 90.3. Man. So you remember you had a 90.2. So they flipped. 90.1 is scope. 90.2 was scope. They created new language for the scope, basically telling you that the article covers the use and application and arrangement of the standard. 90.2, which was titled scope, is now titled purpose, which wasn't in here, well, which was 90.1. So purpose now just basically has a simple statement of what was 90.1, because 90.1 in the 2021 version said the purpose of the standard is to provide a practical, safe working area for employees relative to the hazards arising from the use of electricity. Now that is the purpose, which is 90.2. Did the 2023 second draft pass? You're talking about 2023 code. Correlating committee is meeting next week in Quincy, so Massachusetts. That process is still underway, Mr. Snyder. That process is still underway. So 90.3 used to be standard arrangement, is now called use and application. And what was in 90.2 scope, the covered and not covered, is now workplaces covered and workplaces not covered. That is part of 90.3, and that is use and application. And then you had standard arrangement, which is now 90.4, and that didn't change. The text in there didn't change. There were some changes in 90.5 explanatory material. Yes, that's right, Michael. It has not voted yet. That meeting is next week. And then we move on to the next phase. So that's basically the changes that you're seeing in Article 90. Not major. I don't think there's anything major. I think that we're following the style manual, basically. Now, Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is your safety-related work practices. This is where you have Article 100, 105. 100 is definitions. 105 is application of safety-related work practices and procedures. 110 are your general requirements for electrical safety safety-related work practices. 120 is establishing that electrically safe work condition, and 130 is your work involving electrical hazards. I'm just going to close a couple documents over here. because I am just, okay. All right. So, Article 100, which you're going to see some minor changes again around following the style manuals. For example, there's a change here about arc blast hazard. So, that's a good one. Arc blast. We never had. We never had a arc blast definition. We had arc flash. We had arc ratings. We had arc flash suits. But we never had a definition for arc blast. And that looks like okay. I see what happened. All right. So we have a definition, arc blast hazard, as applied to capacitors. Yes, Dan, all the definitions. So if you go to in chapter 3, grasshopper, look at this. Okay, so here's what happened. Last cycle, the 2021 cycle, there was a new definition for an arc blast hazard. It was put in Article 360 for safety-related requirements for capacitors. And the definition of an arc blast hazard was a source of possible injury or damage to health from the energy deposited into acoustical, shock wave, and high-velocity shrapnel. You know what we call that? An unintended rapid disassembly in the field. That's an arc blast hazard. So what they did was they moved those definitions. So 360.2 used to have arc blast hazard, bleed resistor, charge transfer, dielectric absorption, discharge time, ground stick, hazard ground, low Z, hearing protection boundary, lung protection boundary, soft grounding high Z, time constant. All of those definitions are in Article 100 now because of the style manual. And you know what? Here's the nice thing about that. Did you know there was a definition for arc blast? I've talked about arc blast in the past, and I've always said, no, it's not defined in the NFPA 70E. But here it is. It's right here in Article 360, which was a new article for the 2021 edition of 70E. And the title of Article 360 is Safety-Related Requirements for Capacitors. So this text that is added and moved, they clarified that it says arc blast hazard as applied to capacitors. And they put the reference in parens to 360, what it applies to, just like we're doing for the National Electrical Code. But they didn't change the definition. So that's another change that you're going to see in 70E are in the definitions in adherence to moving things to Article 100. It just didn't happen in the National Electrical Code. It's going on in 70E too. Okay, so arc blast, that's why it looked new, and that's why it's highlighted brown, because they moved it. Yes, the KFB rating, Sean, I love it. Oh, cool beans. Okay, C110.14D. So they made another thing you're going to see. Informational notes. So, for example, the first one, barrier and barricade, Mr. Snyder, yes. So, arc flash hazard, the informational note number 1 was rearranged. So, here's another thing. If you read the NEC style manual, you got to go into the style manual and read through it. The NEC style manual tells us how an informational note has to be constructed. So what you're going to see many changes. For example, arc rating, informational note number 2 started with ATPV is defined in ASTM F1959/F1959M standard test method for determining arc rating materials for clothing. Blah, 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 blah. So what they did was they reworded that to say, see ASTM F1959, etc., which defines ATPV as. So they had to reorganize the informational notes to read in a certain way, and you're going to see all of that. So there are a lot of changes, which absolutely does nothing to enforcement. It doesn't change the intent at all. So that's the other thing to remember. A lot of changes that you might see in 70E for the style manual won't change the intent, the enforcement, or the requirement. They're just simply trying to make it more user-friendly. And they're trying to make it more consistent. So if 70E and the National Electrical Code both follow the exact same style manual, then you have consistency. And with consistency, you have the same enforcement, you have the same way you read documents, the interpretation, it becomes easier, it's more familiar to the brain. So as you move from the documents, it just facilitates a better comprehension of the requirements and finding the requirements. I don't know how a better way to say that. You can translate it into an increased level of safety. If I can understand something better and easier, I'll have a better and easier, a better chance that I'm going to do it the right way. So be mindful of that. All right, so I'm looking through the definitions. You're seeing stuff like that. Authorized personnel was moved from Article 320 again. Battery moved from 320. Battery effect moved from 310. There's battery room moved from Article 320. So you're going to see those definitions that were moved from other articles within this document. And when you see that paren that says 350, that means it only applies in that article as well. So, and really technically that term should not be used anywhere else other than that article. For example, competent person. No, not me. The 70E says competent person, a person who meets all the requirements of qualified persons, and they removed as defined in Article 100 in Chapter 1 of this standard, because that's where qualified persons defined. So they removed that reference, and who in addition, and they kept everything else the same, but that is something that's in 350. And Article 350 covers safety-related work requirements, research and development laboratories. So you have a competent person defined, but it applies to 350. And I would hope that if you search the document, you don't find the use of that term anywhere else. Because if you did, then we would have to reconcile the definition that we have in Article 100 to make sure that the term competent person applies there as well. And then the other change you're going to see, well, we had, you know, when you order things in a definition, in a dictionary, if you were trying to define a term bare conductor, you wouldn't put it under B for bare conductor. You'd put it under conductor, comma, bare. And then in parens after that, they put bare conductor, because some people thought that when you move the definition over there and you say conductor bare, that you have to use the term in the code just like that, conductor bare, else it's not defined, bare conductor. So they put the bare conductor the way you would see it in the code in parens after the term. And they're doing that throughout Article 100. All right, so I'm not going to dwell on Article 100. I want to get into other stuff. So 105 is your safe application of safety-related work practices and procedures. Article 105 is a very short article. Let me just take a look and make sure that it was short here too. I believe 105 is what? 105.1, 2, 3, and 5. we skipped 4. So minor changes. All of the changes that I'm seeing in 105, style manual. You know what that means? They're not changing the intent. They're not changing the requirement. The only impact they have is your readability of this material. Let's take a look at 110. 110 is the general requirements for electrical safety related work practices. I think if you are in 70E, you probably live in 110, 120, and 130. Those are the three big articles and probably the meat around. If I look at 110, multiple pages, 120. 120 is multiple pages, 130. 130's got to be the largest of those articles. Absolutely. So this is I would say the heart and soul of 70E is right here in 110, 120, and 130 from just the sheer number of pages perspective. Now, what do we see? They created a new scope, 110.1. The article covers the general requirements for electrical safety related work practices. Why did they put a 110.1 in there that's no longer titled priority? It's now titled scope because of the style manual. 110.2, which was general, they titled electrically safe work condition, which was 110.3. So if you write books, if you have curriculum, your section numbers are changing. Just when you thought you were done, your section numbers are going to change. So if you referenced, for example, 110.3, electrically safe work condition in any of your reference materials, books, materials, it's now 110.2, electrically safe work condition. Priority, 110.2a is now policy. So they had a focus on policies that the employer has to establish and document and implement the electrical safe work condition policy that requires that hazard elimination is the first priority. And it says hazard elimination. I think we used that term, hazard elimination. Yes, that's 110.1 in the previous edition. So they still maintain that your number one priority is hazard elimination. And they said that it has to comply with 110.2c. And 110.2c is when required. Okay, so basically they're saying, look, you have to have a policy. Your policy has to say, number one, your first priority is hazard elimination. And oh, by the way, you need to make sure you comply with 110.2c, which is when required, which used to be when required. Energized electrical conductor parts and operating voltages greater than 50 volts. Oh, that used to be 110.4c. And D, normal operating conditions. So they combined those sections. They combined that 110.4. Yeah, that's what they did. Well, I'll be. Yeah, 110.4 is no longer energized work. So now you have electrically safe work condition. I like that. The focus is now on electrically safe work condition. They give you the policy requirements around it. They tell you that the requirements on 110.2b is titled requirements until established. That don't make sense. Electrical conductors requirements until established. I know what they mean. I think what they're saying, the requirements until an electrically safe work condition is established. That title needs to work. And policy. Boy, Robert, you have all the really good questions, don't you? Define policy versus procedure versus practice versus priority. You can have a policy that says your priority is to establish an electrically safe work condition and eliminate the hazard. So your policy is something that you communicate to everybody. And it says that the policy has to be documented by the employer, and it can be documented in different ways. You can have your policies as part of your electrical safety program, your ESP, you can put it in your management system or some other documentation. So you have to document your policy. And you have to highlight that you have to establish, you want to eliminate the hazard. And also, you have to identify when it's required. When the employee is within the limited approach boundary. When the employee interacts with equipment. When the equipment is properly installed, the equipment is properly maintained. When the rating of the equipment for available fault current is adequate. The equipment is used in accordance with instructions. The equipment doors are closed and secured. All equipment covers are in place. There's no evidence of impending failures. And they go through that list. So energized electrical conductors and circuit parts operating at voltages equal to or greater than 50 volts shall be put in an electrically safe work condition before you perform work. And they give you all of these conditions. So what they did, I'm liking this. They took 110.3 and 110.4. They eliminated energized work. The 110.4, and Robert, I know you and I talked about it, and I had it marked in my book. I had justified energized work. And we talked about this in different forums, that it says energized work, but we have to emphasize it is only justified energized work that can be performed. It's not just energized work. So, and those are in other areas. So they reconstructed 110.2 titled Electrically Safe Work Condition. Put the emphasis on that, focusing on your policies. And it says electrical conductors shall not be considered an electrically safe work condition until everything in 120.6 has been met. And what's 120.6? Remember what 120 is. 120 is you're establishing an electrically safe work condition article. So what they're emphasizing is that you've got to do everything in 120.6. And if we look at 120.6, which I know you have your book, and I'll tell you if it's the same, or you're out there on NFPA link, 120.6, the old title in 120.6, I need a drum roll. Well, it's old 120.5, process for establishing and verifying an electrically safe work condition. And it's all of those steps. So what 110 is telling us now is that A, your priority is to establish an electrically safe work condition. That unless you do everything in 120.6 or the old 120.5, you shall not consider it an electrically safe work condition. And then it says when required. So so it tells you what the policy is, tells you what you need to do until, how do you know you've established an electrically safe work condition? I hate the title. We got to fix the title in B. When required, it talks energized electrical conductors and parts operating at voltages 50 volts or more. So 50 volts is still your cutoff, and that's AC or DC. You have to establish an electrically safe work condition before an employee performs work if any conditions exist, and they have a list of conditions, which covers the ratings, properly installed, maintained. So this brings in 70B. If it hasn't been maintained, you still have to establish an electrically safe work condition. When required, electrically safe work condition. When required, energized conductors and parts operating at voltages equal to greater than 50 volts shall be put into an electrically safe work condition before an employee performs work if any of the following conditions exist. And it says it's properly maintained. So does that mean I don't have to put in an electrically safe work condition if it's not properly maintained? We need to look at this one. I know they did a lot of work here. And we just have to make sure See, the way it said it before, it said that equipment is properly installed, etc., and that was normal operating conditions. And it just said normal operation of electrical equipment shall be performed where a normal operating condition exists. And it tells you these are normal operating conditions. And if it's not this, if it's not a normal operating condition, why was that important? That was important because when you went back to determine if an arc flash hazard exists, right? And I think we have some issues. So in table 130.5C, it says estimate of the likelihood of occurrence of an arc flash incident for AC and DC systems. So what you have to do here is determine likelihood and severity. And what this table did for like where it says operation of a circuit breaker, switch, contactor, or starter, if it was in a normal condition, which is identified or was identified in 110.4D, that was your normal condition, and it told you it's properly installed, it's properly maintained, the equipment is rated for the available fault current, the doors are closed and secured, there's no evidence of impending failure. All of those, you meet all of those. And then the estimate of likelihood of occurrence of an arc flash event for operating a circuit breaker in those normal conditions, likelihood is none. So there's no likelihood of an arc flash event from just turning a breaker on and off if it meets all of these conditions. Now, they changed that. And if I go to table 130.5, let's go to table 130.5. 130.5 still says normal and abnormal. Oh boy. You know what that means? I don't know. We got to look at this more closely. I'm asking you to look through when the first draft is published. Take a look at, and I'll tell you what section this is. This is, we were just in 120? 120? Was it 120? No. We were in 110. 110, and we were looking at 110. The very first one, right? Yeah, there it is. One required. So FR52. So if you go to that document, FR-52, search for Control F 52 dash 52. There it is. First revision number 52. It's on PDF page 52. Oh my gosh. What's the likelihood that FR number 52 is on page 52? Did they do that on purpose? What's the previous one? No, they didn't. FR24 is on page 51. FR52 is on page 52 of the PDF of FRs. That just, you know what that means? That means somebody upstairs was saying, you need to look at the changes that were made in FR52. So FR52 requirements until established, you'll see those right here. Okay, so you're going to see FR52. You'll see the policy complies with the general requirements until established. I don't think that makes sense. And then you're going to see when required. There is your C, when required. And there's that list that was, it was 110.4D, normal operating conditions. And the reason that was there was to help you when you used table 130.5C. And in my humble opinion, remember, everything on this channel is my humble opinion. It's not the opinion of IAEI. It's not the opinion of NFPA. It's not the opinion of other code-making panel members. Everything is this guy. And in my humble opinion, we lost the connection. and we lost the understanding of what is normal and what is abnormal. So we've got to look at this. And okay, let's talk about process. For the Canadians out there, let's talk about process. The process of this will be that NFPA will publish a first draft. You can get an edge up by looking through this first revision document that I put the link to and walk down through there, take a look at some of the changes. I know it's hard to read. No, it's not hard to read. I said earlier that you're not going to want to put it down, right? It's going to be like your best novel. You're going to want to read through that. You're going to have to read through that. And help me understand if I'm screwed up, that you're not losing that connection with 110.130.5. I really do believe we are. So take a look at that. Take a look at that. And so let's take a look at the committee statement. The committee statement: priority and existing are merged to relocate. Informational notes, section 110.2b is relocated. The word applicable is added. 110.3 merged when required. Existing 110.3 services overarching, reinforcing, established an electrically safe work condition is the primary. So I know what they did. They want to emphasize that you've got to establish an electrically safe work condition. That is your top priority. They said it in the policy. And so they put the focus on establishing an electrically safe work condition. They completely deleted the titled section that said energized work. They said, no, we don't want that. We want you to focus on electrically safe work condition. They incorporated the infeasibility sections. They incorporated the equipment operating less than 50 volts. They incorporated the normal operating condition. But in my opinion, they lost what a normal operation condition is that is used later. Check that one out, please. I think that's a concern. Another thing they did, they gave an exception. An energized disconnecting means or isolating element shall be permitted to be operated to achieve an electrically safe work condition or to return equipment to service that has been placed in an electrically safe work condition. The equipment supplying the disconnecting means or isolating equipment shall not be required to be placed in an electrically safe work condition provided a risk assessment is performed. All they're saying there is if I'm working on a panel board and I have a safety disconnect switch, I can use that safety disconnect switch to turn off that panel board, establish an electrically safe work condition. I can lock and tag it out and I can turn it back on again, but in that safety disconnect switch, I don't have to de-energize it from up above. I'm going to do my risk assessment there, right? What's my risk assessment? What condition is it in? Is it rated correctly? Is it installed correctly? Does the interrupting ratings or short circuit current ratings exceed the available fault current? All those things. I'm going to do my risk assessments. I don't know. You be the judge. Do you think? You be the judge. You know what? That's what we ought to do. Robert, damn, we ought to have a you be the judge, talk about a code section requirement and say, you tell me, does it make sense or not? You be the judge. I love it. Anyway, it is what it is, but take a look at the exception. And they added some exceptions in there. So the infeasibility section 110.4, what used to be 110.4b, they added as an exception to establishing the electrically safe work condition. I like the approach, in my opinion. I like that approach. Focus on establishing an electrically safe work condition. Say you got to have the policies, you have to have the procedures in place. And oh, by the way, the exceptions to that are X, Y, and Z. As opposed to having a section called energized work. I'm with you. I'm with it. I can understand it. I'm not loving everything that was done, and my only concern is the reference to 130, that table, 130.5 Charlie. All right, electrical safety program. That's a big change. I'm telling you, 110, the new 110.2, FR 52, on page 52 of that document. Check it out. You need to look at it and tell me what your thoughts are on that one. 110.3. What time is it? I got 10 minutes. 110.3 is a electrical safety program. 110.3. 110.3. I just want to make sure. Yeah, okay. The new 110.3, which is titled Electrical Safety Program, was the old 110.5. So if you write books, if you have any documents that reference 110.5, if your safe work practices references 110.5, you need to go back and review your references and fix your links. So 110.3, they, again, style manual changes, nothing significant in A, nothing in B, C, and D. E, electrical safe program principles, informational notes, no big deal. No big deal. No, just style manual stuff. Even in H, risk assessment procedures, job safety planning. Okay, your job safety planning. Where's it at? The old job safety planning. Job safety planning. Oh, okay. So what they did. You see the old title used to be job safety planning and job briefing. What they did was they have job safety planning and job briefing, and then they created a one. Oh no, that's already there. One is job safety planning. They didn't create it. It's already there. So job safety planning. They added in job safety planning 2, 3, include the following information, an emergency response plan. So that's the only change they did there. They outside of modifying the informational note, you have to have an emergency response plan as a part of your job safety plan document that is completed by a qualified person. Make sense? They didn't change anything in the job briefing. And then change in scope, minor change to the informational note. They deleted K. K used to be electrically safe work condition policy. What did we just say? They moved that up. Remember, they put that in 110. The new 110. Whatever, 2 or whatever. So that's deleted in K. The new K is lockout tagout program. So lockout tagout used to be L, it's now K. They moved them up a letter. And they didn't change the lockout tagout plan. They didn't change, lockout tagout program and procedure audit, which is 3. The only thing they did there, remember, you can't reference an entire article. So they referenced sections 120.2 through 120.5. So they narrowed it down to comply with the style manual. Nothing different than what you do today. Training requirements. It's 1254. Training requirements, electrical safety training, qualified person. Okay, so 110.4, 110.4, which was the old 110.6, right? So 110.4. What did they do? I see style manual stuff. FR 33. So if you want to know what's going on there, go to that PDF, go to FR 33. Oh gosh. Use Acrobat in Chrome. Not now. FR 33. Control F 33 NFPA. And that will be on page 135 of that document. You'll see all the changes on 135 of that document. What are we looking at here? Applicable. Persons shall also be familiar with the proper use of applicable precautionary techniques. electrical policies, procedures, PPE, insulating materials. Nothing big there. Person shall be permitted to be qualified for some equipment or tasks and not others. That didn't change the meaning. We already had that there. They just reorganized that, separated that into an A, B, C, and D under qualified person. So they got a D now. Instead of just A, B, C, it's A, B, C, and D. They still have the perform job. Yep, they got A, B, C, and D. And that's it. I mean, it's a piece of cake. No big changes there. Scrolling down. 110.6 test instruments. Made some changes to the informational notes, style manual, and rating. Let's keep going. Ground fault circuit interrupters must be listed. I don't know the name. I don't think that's a major change, but employees shall be provided with listed ground fault circuit interrupters, protective devices. So they made some changes there. The rest in 110.8 are style manual, informational notes. They did in maintenance. So 110.8. See what it used to be. I believe it was 110.9. No, 110.10. So the old 110.10 is now 110.8. Excuse me. You still have general, you have maintenance and construction, you have outdoors and testing. They added an informational note to maintenance and construction and outdoors to reference applicable state, federal, or local codes and standards, such as the National Electrical Code. And they specifically called out 590.6B2 regarding implementation of an assured equipment grounding conductor program. So focusing on establishing that electrically safe work condition. And then 110.9 was overcurrent protective device, which was modification, which was the old 110.11. And made some minor changes there. And that's the only change in 110. So the big deal in 110, which I need all of you out there to look at and comment on this. Use this post on YouTube and on LinkedIn and wherever else you find it. Comment on this post because we'll try to make sure we get out there on YouTube. That's where you need to post. Don't post anywhere else. You need to what? You need to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and you need to post your comments under this video. Read through the changes. You'll notice that I created a channel on our YouTube channel. I created a, what do they call that? I created a, what did I create? A playlist. I created a playlist on our YouTube channel. And what it does is it will have nothing but 70E stuff. And what we'll do is we'll follow the 70E process. We'll do another one. I made it through 110 today. I'm going to move into 120. And what we'll do is we'll continue our discussions. And hopefully I can get some other 70E people to talk about some of these changes. But we'll take a look at Article 120 next time and Article 130. And we'll work our way through Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. Article 120... If I just do a quick overview of 120, I don't see anything huge in 120. Article 130, I see style manual. They just don't know their style manuals. I see style manual changes in 130, style manual changes, 130, estimate of likelihood and severity. Additional protective measures. It just keeps getting better, Michael. Just keeps going. And they added abnormal and normal over in that table. Remember, we went to table 130.5 Charlie. 130.5 Charlie. So 130.5 Charlie, there were some minor changes there. But again, I think we lost that connection. We got to look and see the changes that we did. Okay, time to get back to work. It is 12:59. What he said. I'm with you. All right, everybody. Okay, so we'll close this up. We will continue our discussion on 70E. We're going to continue our discussion on 70B as well, because that's in process. So we've got a playlist on 70B. We've got a playlist on 70E. And we have a playlist on NEC 2023. So that reminds me, I should change the title to 70E 2024. That's what I got to do. I got to change that playlist title. So anyway, go get your copy of 70E. Go get your NFPA link subscription. All right, go get that NFPA link subscription. I need you to do that so that when we sit down with this, you can look at the existing changes. Download that PDF so that we can look at it together and we can talk about these changes. And I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions on the impact. Okay, exception number 2 on the end of page 76. Whoops. I am going to do that. Page 76. I don't know that I'm in the same document. Joe, thank you. Dan, thank you. Bring those comments into our next session. It is 101. Thanks for all of you. Thanks you, Lou, and Felix Sandoval from Colombia, South America. Thank you for joining in. Everybody else, thanks for joining in. I appreciate all you do for electrical safety, for the electrical industry, for the IAEI. And I will hope that you are safe. And I hope and I trust that you will stay healthy. Until next time, next Tuesday, I'm going to have to do a recorded session, I think, because Tuesday I'll be at the Core Lane Committee. So probably see you at the Core Lane Committee if you will be there. Otherwise, it will be a pre-recorded session for next Tuesday's IAEI News Live. Thanks, Michael. Thank you, Mr. Snyder. And thanks again. We work together to make things safer. That's what the IAEI is all about. And don't forget, subscribe. Take care, stay safe, God bless, and remember, please stay healthy.